closing was happening at 9 o'clock tonight, but you'll have plenty of time to do that if you choose. I've got two short stories. The first one takes place in Texas along the Texas-Mexico border. When the land sold, most folks hooked up their trailers and drove out, leaving a bizarre patchwork of empty lots, trailers, accented by utility boxes, some old tires, a mattress, stuff that just couldn't make the move. Some of the folks didn't leave. They were the ones who couldn't. And they were joined by some stubborn other folks who said they wouldn't. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. They stood outside in watchful waiting for a man prostrate in his plaid padded recliner, surrounded by stacks of dusty Louis L'Amour paperbacks, half-done crossword puzzles, empty Coke cans, and an ashtray spilling over. He was staying for now. But the death rattle had begun. His last human sounds were of breath. Lungs inhaling to their stretched capacity, deflating, exhaling, vibrating, shaking, releasing all fear and control. Wind exited his parched mouth and began gaining momentum, his hot breath swirling in the cramped living room, gathering up bits of dust and cigarette ash, exiting out the shuttered windows, drawn back in again through the creaks and the cracks of the walls. The walls began to heave, out and in, out and in, with each labored rise and fall of his chest cavity, creaking and groaning, an incantation. The summoning of a quieter place. With the walls gone, peace entered. Thank you. It wasn't a funny story, but maybe you'll laugh at this second one. So this second story actually got its legs in the attic of my old house. I was up there on a Sunday afternoon going through boxes, getting ready for the big move. I was having an existential moment. What stuff needed to go with me and what could stay behind? I didn't know. Well, I found one box that still had the fresh tape on it. Over the 19 years that I lived there, I hadn't opened it one time. That was easy pickings, right? Didn't need it for 19 years, probably not going to need it in the future. But I opened up the box, and to my chagrin, I found at least 2 dozen tchotchkes. You know, little mementos, souvenirs, nostalgic items from my 20s and early 30s. Like a brass whistle, my bowling league patches, that 200-point game that I had, and photographs, Pope soap on a rope. And I picked up this one object that kind of had some extra energy in it. It sent me into a tailspin of memories and emotions. And that's the story I'm going to share with you today. It takes place along the Texas-Mexico border, but it's a different story. And it's also placed in a trailer park. Different story. We sat outside the single wide, dragging our chairs to keep pace with the passing of the afternoon shade. The marks in the dirt left by our chairs marked our time, 2 hours by the watch. Blue, my girlfriend, was inside visiting with her father, Charles Cochran III. And he didn't stray far from his recliner 20 years after his heart attack. And like you may have heard, Coke cans empty, spilled over, ashtrays. It wasn't my jam, really. I preferred the great outdoors and sitting with my mother-in-law, Blue's mom, Lucia. We would sit out there and shoot the shit, drink beer. She had so many great trailer park stories that I needed to catch up on from the last time I was there. And this time, for this trip, I brought a styrofoam chest filled with Tecate beers in ice. Oh man, the combination of salt and lime and carbonated coldness, it sent me a flood of sensations. And I sat there sipping at the rim of my beer, soaking in all the flavors, when I heard, "Hey!" And I looked over to Lucille, who stood up and was fishing through the pockets of her summer frock, front and back, and her apron and all over. And then finally she said, "Here!" And she placed in my hand a grimy metal object and then closed my fingers over it, put her right hand on the top and her left hand on the bottom, kind of like a sarcophagus. And she said, "You like Tecate? I never did." And we kind of laughed because, well, all the beer cans on the ground kind of, said another story. It seemed like she did like Tecate, but she also, it was kind of ironic that a Mexican woman didn't like a popular Mexican beer, and I, an American, a Midwesterner at that, did? Well, we started talking about what was in my hand, which I still didn't know. As a point of emphasis and to maybe add an extra drama, she brought her nose right next to mine, lifted up the sarcophagus and said, "This is worth a lot of money." Finally, she let go and I peeled my fingers back to see what was in my palm. And it was a miniature Tecate can salt shaker. So I lifted it up to the sun and turned it this way and that, making sure I saw every little detail. And I wondered about that faint rattling sound inside. "It was from Mexico," she said, as if its imported status added to the value. "Take it to the flea market, you'll see." Well, my curiosity got the best of me, and I pried open the salt shaker top and peered into the can, and piled at the bottom was a collection of exoskeletons. There was a centipede, 2 cockroach wings, something like a mosquito or a spider, wasn't really sure. But I was sure that there was the back half with the stinger of a scorpion. Well, this really confounded me. I started thinking about, what? Who? Why? I put the lid back on, and she proceeded to tell me that if I had both the salt and the pepper, I could really make some money. Go to the flea market, she kept urging me. So I fake clutched it to my pearls and I said, "Oh no, I couldn't do that, Lucia. This is an heirloom. I'm keeping it." And we both laughed. After 3 years of meeting out there, we got each other's humor. And we both knew in a way that we were the butts of this joke. Because for 3 years that I dated her daughter, it was a record-setting streak for her, apparently. And I was the closest that she would ever get to having a daughter-in-law. And this Tecate salt shaker heirloom was the closest I would ever get tangible proof of my acceptance by her. So the ride back to San Antonio that night flew by. I had the windows down, the radio up. I was free and feeling really good. I think being single suited me. When I went into my apartment, I knew exactly where I wanted to put that Tecate salt shaker, in between the crystal clear quartz crystals that I'd found in Big Bend National Park, and the wind-up plastic walking soccer ball that my 4th period English students had given me on the last day of school. So it held a place of honor. I paused with my hand on the light switch, thinking, scanning the room, wondering which of my objects, my tchotchkes, my nostalgic pieces, my heirlooms, might beg me for a second chance. Well, when the time comes, right? Which ones would clamor for a chance at charity? And what would it mean? And I'm asking you to ponder that on your own. Like, what do you have that might have a second life? I think there's a story there.